Welcome to the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by a very happy Bakar who has had a solid green arrow in Game Week 10. We're going to look ahead in this video to Game Week 11, get Bakar's thoughts, tips and advice, the best players for the week, best transfers, what he's doing with his team. All will be revealed in this episode. Bakar, how are you doing, mate? How was last Game Week?
Hello, Jack. Hello, welcome to all the listeners and viewers. Last week was actually one of the best of the season so far. For me, I got a very healthy green arrow. I'm hoping I can just string a few together to consolidate my rank and to finally make it count at this stage of the season. Uh, yeah, so Bruno Fernandes scored. Finally, that's something that I've been
Respect.
waiting for
There he is.
since eternity. And yeah, the 10-pointer helped, and so did the switch that I made from Haaland to Salah.
Yeah.
Again, that's one of those things that could have gone horribly wrong. But I'm sort of very grateful to be in this position where it went all right, and the team sort of looks all right now for the weeks to come.
Very, very solid and just big green arrow, to be honest, which you wouldn't necessarily expect from 62 points. It's like a relatively average score in general, but the average was obviously lower this week. I think the main thing is, though, like you can still make huge jumps in rank without having like insane weeks. You wouldn't, like after this week, you didn't think, wow, everything went for me. I had an unbelievably insane week. Yeah, the moves you made, went well, and you had Solanke and Bruno, but it wasn't one of those generational weeks where you're like, okay, everything went right, and that's why I got a plus 1 million green arrow. You got a 3.4 million game week rank, for example. Like it's not generational, but you can still make massive gains, right? Just by having good game
In
weeks.
the context of how the season has gone, it does
Okay,
seem
well
generational,
that's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair
right?
enough.
Right.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
it's been a long time coming, but yeah, I hear you. It was a solid week. It wasn't anything spectacular, but there will be better weeks as well
Yeah,
at different stages of the season. It's just about getting in a run of green arrows because this season's been a case of one step forward, two steps back, and I don't really want to get into that kind of rut. I just want to sort of get out of this hole that I've dug myself at the start of the season. And uh, yeah, I mean, currently the team looks all right. There will be a few transfers. There are a few fires to put out in the weeks to come, but I guess I'll take it. Looking at how last week has gone.
yeah. So before we move on to looking at your team for Game Week 11, just tell the people exactly what your transfers were. You had 2 free transfers and you used them both. What did you do?
I sold Haaland and I sold Semenyo to get Salah and Raul Jimenez. So yeah, it was basically a switch to get Salah as the captain, as I felt that he would be a better captain than Haaland in most weeks to come. Because again, the argument was that at 15 million, Haaland had to be like the clear captaincy choice to justify his value, and I didn't feel that would be the case in the weeks to come because Salah and uh, Palmer would cover me just fine for captaincy. So it went all right. Selling Rogers and Semenyo was 50-50 call. I wasn't overly happy about selling either of them, but I guess the move had to be made. Jimenez blanked, which was really frustrating.
Yeah.
Uh, but I guess you have to take certain things on the chin. The Flecken clean sheet wipeout was something which kept me up till 3 a.m. at night, and it was honestly heartbreaking. Like throughout the night, I was having nightmares of that Harry Wilson flick that went
That was
in.
a great
So
goal.
yeah, Monday night wasn't exactly a very good experience. It was an amazing goal, and to be fair, Flecken would have been very lucky to have hauled in the first place because Fulham were clearly the better team for the majority of the game. But for him to go from a 12 pointer to an 8 pointer to a
Yeah.
4 pointer in the span of 6 minutes felt really brutal. I mean, it was something which was expected and deserved, I guess, but the manner in which it happened was tough to take.
I also have Flecken, and I was working it out in my head, looking at the bonus points as the game went on, and I was pretty chilled, like come the 75th, 90th minute, because like from that period in that period of time, because I worked out that it was extremely likely that even if Fulham did score, Flecken would still get 3 bonus. So I was completely fine with that. And I was like, okay, if he then drops, he'd made 10 saves. If he then drops to 8 points, yeah, on the balance of the game, that is deserved. Let's be honest. Fulham have really they hadn't had loads of chances, but they've been the only team really trying to win the game or score a goal since Brentford scored. It was that second goal which was the absolute killer. Because I
Yeah.
like to score again in the 96th or whatever, whenever Wilson scored his second, and then take another 4 points away from Flecken, going from an 8 to a 4. I mean, 8 points if you concede a goal is unbelievable without a penalty save. But yeah, that was the killer. Anyway, that's a little rant over. I can't say I was up to 3 a.m., but maybe 2:30 a.m. UK time. Let's have a look at your team for next week. First things first, looks super strong. I do immediately want to ask you just your thoughts on Jimenez, just selfishly because I brought him in last week as well. Are you okay with him? Is it a little bit concerning that he came off as early as he did, especially given that we're going to be going into the Christmas period relatively soon?
I was surprised to see that happen. I was actually expecting Muniz to come on and play with him instead
Yeah.
of being a direct replacement, but Muniz didn't offer anything of note. So I'm not too perturbed by the early substitution. I'm still expecting Raul to be a good pick for his minutes and for the value he's likely to offer. So nothing has changed in my head. There will be the occasional 70, 75-minute subs. But I mean, he's 5.7, 5.8 million. So you've got to be sort of realistic with what you expect.
Yeah, completely fair enough. And in terms of your just who you're going to play this week out of your 8 attackers, before I ask about your transfers in general, is Rodgers going to be benched?
I think so. I think so. Again, this depends on whether we hear that Calvert-Lewin is starting or not, because it's actually a 3 p.m.
Mm.
Deadline, um, and Everton are actually playing in the 3 p.m. kickoff. So we might hear something about Calvert-Lewin and whether or not he's starting. I think an Everton league is unlikely because we haven't really heard too many in the past, and I doubt that even if we do, they will be before the deadline. But I mean, I'm still going to be, let's say, waiting for to make my transfers till Saturday, I think. Um, and yeah, I currently, with the current information, I think his spot is actually at the most vulnerable as it has been at any point in the season, just because he's not been playing well. But I still expect him to start, despite that. I mean, the early sub at 0-0 last week was very worrying. But I still sort of think that Calvert-Lewin will probably start against West Ham if you sort of put a gun to my head and ask me.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's sort of looking grim at this point. And I mean, frankly speaking, owning him has been a disaster.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I don't think I'm as confident as you that he will start this one. I think this is the sort of one where he might get
I
dropped.
would say confident. I would say confident, but I mean, gun to head, if I was to guess, I
No,
would
as in
expect him.
yeah, I think that I think he might get benched. I think I would just about 55-45. I would think he'd start Beto this week, just because Calvert-Lewin
Oh,
he's I don't know. It's not as if he has been playing poorly, right? And that is the earliest he's been subbed in a long time. In the last game, and it's not as if he's not been getting any chances or he's been sort of like, he's not had any service. He's been getting the chances. So though in theory, then the chances would be falling to Beto, and people are creating chances for him. He's not taking them. So I'm not sure if there might not be a switch there. What are your thoughts on him in general, and for managers out there that are thinking of moving him on? Do you think this is the week to do it, or do you think it's worth seeing how this goes? I mean, the thing is, like, say it did go well this week, even if you were to bench him or not, you got Brentford at home the week after, which is one of the best fixtures you can possibly have from an attacking perspective.
I personally feel as if selling him is probably a low priority transfer if we get news that he's starting. And
Okay.
with the current information available, that's the assumption that I'm taking as opposed to the opposite. Yes, owning him has been a unmitigated disaster. But personally, when I look at the next two, West Ham away, Brentford at home, I mean, the fixtures are all right. And the big point for me is that I think that the fixture swing for Everton sort of rotates really well with Brighton. So as soon as Everton's good fixtures are over, you can get and jump to João Pedro. Now that's a move that I have penciled in for my own team
Yeah.
uh, in game week 13, or that's at least a move I want to make. Uh, because Brighton's fixtures from game week 13 are like they're sumptuous. Southampton at home, Fulham, Leicester, Crystal Palace, West Ham, Brentford. So that's the run they have from game week 13 onwards. Now, game week 13 is like 3 weeks away from now on in. And João Pedro has been in team training for the past week. Now, I would think that 4 months of team training would be enough for him to probably get a start by game week 13, which would be the time where you'd need him. So I'm sort of happy taking DCL along as long as he's starting. If he doesn't start, then it becomes more of an issue. Now, I have 3 million in the bank, and I can actually
Yeah.
even afford to sell him for Cunha or even Isak
Well, this is what's
this
interesting in your
week.
positions that you're not limited by budget at all. You could go to any sort of cheap forward, even like you could even actually get to you could pretty much get to any forward that you'd want to get to, right? Like Isak's there.
Hmm.
You're almost at Watkins sort of territory.
Yeah, with 3 million in the bank, I can get to Isak, and that's why Cunha isn't really in consideration for me because if I am selling Calvert-Lewin, I might as well just get Isak because his fixtures are nice as well. Uh, but currently, I think there are bigger priorities in the team to address. I think Calvert-Lewin to Isak is a transfer I would definitely consider and consider more seriously if we get news that Calvert-Lewin is benched.
Okay.
But without any news, it's a transfer that I'm going to find difficult to justify because, with just one free transfer, I have to look at my team and think about the single biggest concern in my team to address. And currently, if Calvert-Lewin is starting, I'm not sure it is Calvert-Lewin.
Okay. Let's get into that then. Who is it? Who are you thinking?
I think it is. I think it is in defense because Dunk has a rough fixture this week. I'm not even sure he's available. Um, Mikalenko has West Ham away. I mean, West Ham have been poor, but I'd still expect them to score. I don't really want to play Mikalenko. I don't expect Rico Lewis to start the next 2 or 3 fixtures for Man City either,
Really?
because yeah, I don't because I think tactically, I know Walker's been really poor, but when you look at their fixtures, Brighton against Matoma, I think he'll probably opt for Walker's pace against City, against Liverpool. Sorry, against Spurs and Liverpool. I'm not sure whether Lewis will start any of those fixtures. So currently, I'm actually thinking I might sell Lewis because
Wow.
I just don't think he's going to start any of the next three. And his value is only going to go down because of the difficulty of the fixtures and because of the minutes concerns. So I'm currently thinking I might sell Rico Lewis and address that fire in my defense.
Okay. And in terms of potential options, I mean, this is a massive move because depending on how much money you're willing to spend here, this is the thing. You talk about this. Defense isn't really a position that you want to be. You don't want to be spending a lot of transfers on defenders, let alone budget defenders, really. So this is probably a move I assume that you're going to want to just do and get done and sort of have a solid player in there for a decent chunk of time. So
Yeah.
it depends. Like you've got 3 million in the bank, you can go in a lot of different routes with this. It's just whether you're going to need that money later on to upgrade another attacking perhaps player in your team. So what are you currently thinking? Who are you thinking to potentially bring in for Lewis?
I think there are two ways I can go about this. The first is that I can get Trent set and forget till till basically eternity because Trent is going to be a hold for quite a long time. And the other approach is that if I think that I might need the funds in the future, I might get a cheaper defender, someone like let's say a Dallo from Man United because United's fixtures are decent in the next three. But currently, I'm favoring the Trent move. I'm
Okay.
favoring the Trent move because I think Liverpool have comfortably been the best defense statistically this season in terms of fewest XG conceded. Trent has only gotten just the one assist, but he's still top for XGI among defenders. His expected returns read 3.5, but he's just had the one assist, which shows that he's underperformed. Had he actually gotten like 3 or 4 assists, like his data suggests, everyone would be jumping on him.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't necessarily think that I will need the funds later uh, for other moves because uh, as in when you look at my team, when I look at the fires that I might need to put out, I think one of them is probably going to be Calvert-Lewin, who I can swap for João Pedro.
Yeah.
Apart from that, Bruno Fernandes is looking fine. Solanke is looking fine.
I think the only thing is like having Bruno instead of Saka is all I'm looking at when you have the money to get there now.
I think I'm going to keep Bruno for Leicester, Ipswich, and Everton. I'm not going to
100%.
swap him
It's
before
more
game
after that.
14.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but in Game Week 14, I would likely sell Porro anyway. And at that point,
Okay.
I can just downgrade Porro and get Saka for Bruno. So
Okay, fine. Yeah.
because I don't want to keep Porro from Game Week 14 onwards. Once Spurs are done with the Fulham fixture, Spurs have a rough run of fixtures defense from a defensive point of view. So Porro is going to be a transfer out in Game Week 14. And maybe I can downgrade Porro to any defender at that point. Maybe, let's say, Colville for Chelsea's fixtures, or even Lewis. because I think that will actually be a good time to jump back on Lewis once City's fixtures are out of the way. And then the easier fixtures will actually start where I'd expect Lewis to start. I don't think Lewis is a hard sell this week. I think it depends on whether or not your defense is robust enough to keep cope up with his absence. And I don't think mine is, especially not in the next 2, 3 weeks. So I might as well get Trent in this week. Good fixture, home to Villa. Then Southampton next week is another one. And the big thing is that Trent in will be a transfer I would want to make by game week 15 anyway. So I might as well do it right
Okay.
now when I have the funds, and just take the value that is on offer in the next two fixtures.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you're super hot on Trent, just because I think a lot of owners perhaps are looking at him now as a potential sell, just because in terms of like absolute points, he hasn't been doing it over the past couple of weeks, and he's getting a little bit frustrating. However, you're saying no, let's forget about that. He's still the best defender in the game.
Yeah, but absolute points, I mean, they matter in theory, but that's not how I play the game. I mean, that's
Of
not why I
course.
have had Bruno for this long, right? Because
Yeah.
I go on what the fixtures say, what the odds say, and what the underlying data is suggesting. And that's telling me that Trent for the next two fixtures will be fine. And 13 and 14 is not exactly the ideal player to own, but from game week 15 onwards, I'd want him anyway. So I
Yeah.
might as well just get him in. And the big thing for me is in game week 13, he's playing City, right? That's a week where I want to avoid him in, right? But that's also a week where Dunk has Southampton at home, Porro has Fulham at home,
Yeah.
and Gabriel has, I think, West Ham away, if I'm not
Exactly.
mistaken.
Yeah.
So I can easily bench Trent in 13 as well. So looking at how my team is shaping up, I can just bench Trent in the tougher fixture
Yeah.
against City and just keep him for the rest of the week. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. The main issue that you've highlighted is whether or not I'll need funds for additional moves. And currently, I don't think I will be.
Well, I just looked ahead on the My Team tool here at sort of the money that you might have, and selling Lewis for Trent this week would give you 4.4 million in the bank, if you went from Bruno up to Saka, and then Porro was sold. So you'd have 4.4 million for that defender slot in game week 14 if you made no other transfers. So there's options there.
And I will almost certainly be moving from Calvert-Lewin to João Pedro, which will free up an additional 0.5 million.
Yeah, so if you're going to do that as well,
Right? So,
then you can go wherever
yeah.
you want, really. Yeah.
See, that's why I'm thinking of doing Porro to Lewis or Porro to Colville in 14 and just getting Saka in for Bruno if need be. I'm not even sure I want to sell Bruno at that point, though, because that will be a point where December fixtures will be upon us, and Bruno is extremely robust for the December fixtures. So even though I'm planning for that move in advance, I'm not sure whether I'll actually do it.
Well, this is the thing. Like, yeah, 14 is tough, but then it's Forest at home, and then the next home fixture is Bournemouth at home, and you have 8 attackers.
Another thing I've looked at doing is possibly even selling Mykolenko over Lewis and keeping Lewis this week. I can even do Mykolenko to Trent, but I'm currently leaning against it because if I don't think that Lewis will start the next 2 or 3 fixtures, then why do I want to take the drops on him? It doesn't necessarily make sense from that point of view. And I actually think I'll play Mykolenko next week when he's playing Brentford at home.
Wow.
In my team.
Okay.
Yeah. So looking at my team, I think
over Porro,
over Porro, yeah, because Porro has City, right? And Dunk has Bournemouth away, which is again a rough fixture. So I need a defender for game week 12, which is why I'm favoring keeping Mykolenko over Lewis, because I think Mykolenko at home to Brentford is a better play than, let's say, Lewis against Spurs. And I'm not even sure Lewis is going to start that fixture. So realistically, Jack, just to sum it up, currently I'm contemplating Lewis to Trent, but if we get news that Calvert-Lewin is benched, then there are 2 routes that I can take. The first route is that I can still go ahead with the Trent move and just bench Calvert-Lewin and play Rodgers, right? Alternatively, what I can do is I can just keep Lewis and get Isak over Calvert-Lewin if there's news that he's benched. So yeah, these are the realistic transfers that I'm considering for my own team.
Okay. And we'll have to wait and see come deadline what Bakar ends up doing. Your final team reveal, as always, will be posted on the website Fantasy Football Hub. If you want to check that out, link down below. Let's round this off, though, by having a look at what the AI is recommending for your team and seeing if it's similar or completely different to what you have in your mind. Okay, mate, here they are on screen right now. I say they, that would be a lie. There's only one. Calvert-Lewin to Chris Wood. Shock. The AI loves Wood nearly as much as me. I've had a great time. He's been unbelievable in my team. He's been one of my favourite players to own this season. He's been an absolute joy. His 13-pointer against Leicester was just, joyous. It was just a beauty. That second goal in particular, the Faz error, the looping header. What an absolute joy to watch. Calvert-Lewin out, Wood in. What do you think about that?
Again, it's a transfer that sort of makes sense on paper. But again, when you look at my team, you have to decide which one of defense or attack to prioritize. And currently, I'm leaning defense. So again, a lot of this depends and comes down to the assessment of, let's say, Rico Lewis's minutes and Calvert-Lewin's minutes of the weekend.
Yeah, makes complete sense to me. So probably like not a transfer that you have to make this week, I suppose. There is a big disparity this week, even though it's Newcastle at home for Wood in the points predicted. But yeah, it's one of those with Wood. Do you think maybe that the boat has, if you've not got on it already, it's not really worth going there? Are there better options now? I'm thinking of Kuno.
I think so, because Arsenal and City in 2 of the next 4 is an ideal, exactly. Right?
Even with rotating out that player for an 8th attacker, you don't really want to be doing that with Wood.
Yeah. He's also not exactly that cheap anymore because he's done so well that he's risen in price.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so there we go. Probably not going to do those moves, definitely not this week. But food for thought nonetheless. I mean, the main thing here is the AI is saying it's now time to get rid of Calvert-Lewin. So we'll see whether or not he starts this week. But you can't be 100% sure now that he's going to start. And we know how much the AI is really sort of, it looks at expected minutes as a massive sort of proponent and estimator of how well someone is going to do in a given week. As always, guys, if you would like your own AI recommended transfers personalized to your team, sign up to Fantasy Football Hub. If you've watched this much of the video and you haven't signed up yet, have a look in the mirror. Like, what are you doing? It's time to do it. And you might think, oh, it's too late. No, we still have 28 game weeks to go this year, including doubles and blanks. It's the perfect time to sign up. If you haven't done it already, link down below. It's also 30% off. Bakar, thank you very much as always. Let's hope for a couple more green arrows from us next week. It'd be good if you could join me in with the rank of 6 figures rather than the 7. So just whenever you feel ready to do that, I'll be here waiting for you. But thanks very much, mate, as always.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. Just one final point on Palmer. He's a bit of an injury.
Oh, yes.
I haven't really heard anything on him so far. But irrespective of whatever news we hear, I think because there's a 2-week international break coming up, even if he's out this week, I'm probably going to keep him because the fixtures from Gameweek 12 are delicious. And I just want to be in this position where I don't really have a transfer booked for him later. So yeah, I'll probably play Rodgers in his place if we don't hear anything positive. Yeah. And if he's out for the weekend, basically. But yeah, fingers crossed.
It's good stuff. And that, to be fair, is the beauty of having 8 attackers, is that you can get away with one of your premiums getting a little knock where you don't really want to be spending transfers on them. But there we go. Thank you, mate. And good luck this week. Good luck to all of you guys. And we will catch you on the next one.